Welcome to the community of faith of Church Hill United and Guilford United Churches in Innisfil for this week of September 25th, 2022. I'm the minister Krista Moore, and I welcome you to this place. Please join us next week in the sanctuary at Guilford at 9:30 or Church Hill United Church at 11 o'clock a.m., where we will celebrate communion. We would love to have you, and please stay for fellowship. This week's reflection is based on the gospel message of the rich man and Lazarus from Luke 16, verses 19 to 31. Back when I was at Emmanuel College, I was chair of the Student Society, and I was responsible for organizing a large end-of-the-year celebration. It was March of 2020, moments before the COVID lockdown was announced, and there were balloons and karaoke music and so much food. We couldn't put an end to it. Many people had already left, and some had decided to stay home. So we were trying to figure out what to do with all of this food. As we were packing up, I noticed a man standing quietly at the doorway. I could tell he wasn't someone from Emmanuel College. He was dressed poorly, and his hair was a bit disheveled. But he was respectful and just waiting there. And one of my student friends, Michael, explained that he had invited this man to come. He was a friend of Sanctuary, a local charity for those experiencing homelessness and addiction in our city. Michael worked with this man and was always advocating for people like him on the streets. So Michael asked if this man might come in to get some food to bring back to his community. I thought for a split second, as the one responsible for this party, all the rules and safety restrictions of my university to protect those inside. But this man didn't seem to bother anyone. I saw his humanity, and I went up to him and I said, "Come in, please. Help yourself. There's lots of food. Take some containers so you can take some back with you and share with your friends." He said thank you, and he came in and he filled up a few containers of food. And I talked to him for a bit, and then he left. In Luke's gospel today, a similar man named Lazarus begs outside a rich man's house. The poor man is waiting for any scraps that the man might throw his way, but the rich man does not come out and does not give him any food or money. Truthfully, I don't think he actually even noticed him. He was so busy feasting inside of his own house day after day. Only the dogs came outside to lick the poor man's sores, reminding me that another of Jesus' sayings that even the dogs get scraps from under the table. But this poor man wasn't even treated that well because he didn't even get a scrap from under the table. This parable must have been very hard for some of Jesus' listeners to hear. Maybe they identified with the poor man, or maybe they felt judged as the rich man. His followers knew Jesus cared about those less fortunate. He healed them and he gave them what they asked for. He even touched lepers, which was completely against all the rules at that time. And he even hugged them. This shocked people who felt people as this poor man were untouchable. So in the story, the poor man dies, but so does the rich man. And everything changes. Everything is completely reversed. Now the poor man goes straight up to heaven to be with God and Abraham, while the rich man goes straight to Hades or hell, this place of torment. And the rich man looks up and sees Lazarus up there with Abraham and begs Abraham to send Lazarus down because he's so thirsty and his tongue is drying up. But Abraham says, "No, I cannot." And then the rich man begs again, "Please, Abraham, please send Lazarus down and at least let him go and warn my brothers who are still alive to not live as I have lived in such a selfish way." But Abraham says, "No, I cannot do it." See, there is a divide between these two worlds now, and you can't go back. Lazarus cannot go where the rich man is. He is safe now. He is protected by God. And it's ironic because now the rich man is shut out. Not by God, I believe, but more by his own behavior, the greed and the lack of mercy that he showed towards his brother Lazarus. This is a parable of warning that reminds me of another of Jesus' teachings. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. What we have now, we may not have later, and those who suffer now will be uplifted, and those who tout their wealth and show no mercy will have nothing to comfort them later. So, as the people were listening to this parable, it must have been very bad news for those who were wealthy and powerful, like the Pharisees. Can you imagine them squirming or grimacing at Jesus and throwing up their hands and walking away? They thought they were the righteous ones because they were powerful and wealthy, and that they must be therefore guaranteed a good afterlife. But Jesus calls out their arrogance and shows that only the humble see God. Power and wealth don't mean much in the spiritual realms. Jesus shocked them into this new spiritual reality. God doesn't see your wealth and status. God cares more about your heart. We all know this intuitively. But this parable can still be hard to hear, depending on who we identify with in the story. Some of us may identify with the rich man who has a lot on his plate and enjoys the fruits of his labors when he returns home at the end of each day. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying one's wealth or comforts, is there? After all, he's worked hard and he's earned it. So as we enjoyed the end of our year celebration at Emmanuel College and all the food that was available in front of us, I felt suddenly embarrassed at the wealth that we enjoyed and this man approaching me with nothing. It's not that I felt that we didn't deserve it, because we had worked hard, but I also felt, well, so did he deserve it. And so we shared the food. I know that I am blessed as a privileged person, but I also feel that others are blessed too. And, well, don't we all deserve it as children of God? We may also identify with or care for those who are experiencing hard times. This time of year is especially hard as we approach Thanksgiving and Christmas season. The weather gets colder, food prices are higher, and some can't afford to pay their bills or put food on the table. COVID has also changed things. Some people lost loved ones or lost their job. Others experience health issues or are taking on more responsibilities than they're used to. And some may have struggled with addictions or have been alienated from their families or communities. In the larger world, there's a food shortage and hunger crisis. War, mass migrations, hurricanes like Fiona, and other natural disasters can take people who once had it all and suddenly leave them homeless, totally dependent on strangers in a time of great crisis and need. Our world hasn't changed that much since the time of Jesus. He said himself, in this life there will be trouble. He also said, there will always be poor among you. But today, it might be harder to tell who is struggling. They are not always like the poor man standing or lying at the gate. They could be friends or neighbors, people like you and me, and sometimes the problem lays hidden. Back in the spring of 2021, 1 year later from this celebration, when COVID kept us all inside, I had a cousin who struggled with addiction. He had a very difficult time years back, but he worked hard and he got into some trouble and then he got into drugs. This affected his mental health and he made some bad choices. And one time he was even homeless, sheltering in someone's barn over winter. Then he had a very bad car accident and was recovering in the hospital. My mother and I went to see him. He was so positive despite what had happened to him, and we and other family members did our best to encourage him and tried to help him get back on his feet. He had been so excited about turning his life around and maybe even getting an education, finding a better job in construction. But when COVID separated us and being at home too long alone, his addiction got worse. He died that spring, shocking us all. I know that many of you in our community have lost loved ones as well to such tragedy, and our hearts break for such loss. The truth is that anyone can be vulnerable. I think of my cousin, and now whenever I see someone on the street or begging on the side of the road, I think, that's someone's son or daughter. I bet their mother is so worried about them. I pray, God, you must love this person. God, please bless them. And if there's something that I can do, tell me. The truth is that bad things can happen to good people, and sometimes people lose their way in life. But Jesus cares about those lost in the streets or hiding away out of sight. God loves each of us the same. Jesus showed us in this parable the true value of people, their spiritual value and worth. The one whom society judged as an outsider, a worthless beggar, was celebrated in heaven. And the one whom society thought was doing so well, a rich man, was corrupt inside because he showed no mercy or compassion, and so he lost everything. The good news in this story is that God cares for everyone, especially those who are afflicted or oppressed. God cares about us. And although this is still a difficult parable to hear, it has hope for everyone of goodwill, particularly Jesus' followers, and that means us. Jesus preached the gospel. He walked with sinners and the brokenhearted, those who are poor in spirit or material wealth. He also welcomed the tax collectors and those who were wealthy. He didn't discriminate, but he did warn or caution people not to be deceived by wealth like the rich man who thought he was better than the poor man, Lazarus, and ended up with nothing. Ultimately, Jesus wants everyone to follow him and show mercy to others no matter what their circumstances. That doesn't mean we have to agree with their lifestyle or choices or give up what we have and put ourselves at risk or take someone in who is unstable or violent. It does mean that we can see their value and seek help for them or ourselves. There are resources available. And one of my goals as a minister is to have such a resource available at each of the churches and online so that everyone can know where to turn in times of need. There is also hope in this gospel that nothing in our circumstances is permanent. No hardship will last. The poor man is given more than he could ever imagine. God has the final say. God will give to each their fair due. And this is reason to celebrate. Can you imagine the poor beggar's eyes light up when he arrives in heaven to greet all his loved ones and his hero of faith, Abraham? Can you imagine Jesus setting the table before him, a special place just for him, where his sores are healed over, and even the dogs are happily wagging their tails, gobbling up their meal of their own, while everyone enjoys their fair share of food, sharing stories of past trials and tribulations and how wonderful it is to be there together, so blessed that they no longer have to suffer and that everyone has what they need. But even more hopeful than the promise of heaven is that you don't have to wait to be blessed or to be a blessing to others. Jesus performed miracles for regular folks while he walked on earth. He healed people along the way. He fed thousands of people at one time by multiplying the bread, and he raised the dead and wiped tears from every eye. we can be like Jesus and bless others along the way and uplift them. The gospel doesn't promise that there won't be suffering in the world. There is suffering, to be sure. And I don't believe Jesus is asking us to deny or delay happiness either. He shows by his actions that we can make a difference to people in their lives right now. We can uplift their burdens and give them new life. That true happiness is possible in this life. He also celebrated with them, as we know. Jesus offers hope, but also instruction. Jesus didn't say, "Follow me and sit comfortably and all will be well," like the rich man. He said, "Follow me, and sometimes there will be trouble, but follow me and love one another, and ultimately all will be well." Embrace one another in times of difficulty, and if we are doing relatively well, we can appreciate what we have and share with everyone around us. If we do not have much or suffer in some way, we can reach out for help. Whatever our circumstances, we can reach out and make a difference. And this is what it means to follow the way of Christ. I am encouraged as I continue in my third week working with this community of faith at Churchill and Guildford United. I have learned so much from you already about what it means to be generous and to care about each other. Whether some of us are experiencing hardship or are the people working behind the scenes to alleviate those burdens, I see people supporting each other and doing great things. For example, this community will next week be rallying together to prepare food and goods donated by local organizations to give to about 30 families over Thanksgiving. And right now at Churchill and Guildford, we're collecting food for a food drive for Thanksgiving to meet the demand that is higher than usual post-COVID times. This food will be delivered to community fridges in the Innisfil and Cookstown areas. And if you have a business or public space, feel free to collect more than you can from clients or neighbors or friends, and we will work together to deliver them to fill up the community fridges by Thanksgiving. Drop by on Sunday and bring your canned goods. There are baskets at the front and back of each of the churches. And thank you to all who are participating or helping out. We also have something called the Benevolent Fund to help those struggling in our community. If you would like to donate a little extra, please talk to our treasurers, either Doris at Guildford or Agnes at Churchill, or myself, and we can arrange that for you. And you will also hear, as we talk today, about the United Church's Mission and Service Fund, what some call M&S, which comes from communities of faith just like us across Canada to benefit local communities, families, and individuals experiencing loss or hardship. Mission and Service also raises funds to help with global initiatives like disaster relief, just like with Fiona, for those who are displaced. It feels wonderful to help. But I wanted to also emphasize that sometimes it's hard to admit when we are the ones who need help. I know I've been there. It's hard when we're used to being in control and doing everything for everyone else. I'm sure some of you can relate. But I encourage you, if you or someone you know needs help, emotionally, physically, mentally, or materially, please reach out to myself or someone in our community. I'm here for you, and there are many more resources available that we can point you toward. Everything you share is confidential unless you would like it to be known. Everyone has been through something. We are not here to judge. We all have our stories to tell. We are here to help, and we care about you. Being there for each other brings us strength, and that is the hope that we share as a family in the family of Christ. So as I was leaving the Emmanuel College gathering, my friend Michael, who had brought the homeless man, came up to me and whispered a few words in my ear. He said, "Thank you." I said, "For what?" And he said, "You were good with him." And I thought, "You mean because I gave him the food?" And he said, "No. You listened to him. He doesn't like to talk to too many people, and he felt safe to talk to you. That's what he needed today." I felt this wave of gratitude that God was present with us in that moment and in these precious moments where we share in community, face to face with each other. Of course, I said, but maybe that wasn't so usual for that man on the street. Maybe most people walk by him. But along with some food, maybe all he really needed or wanted was someone to say, "Hey, how's it going?" and listen to his story, because everyone has one. Everyone is like a sister or a brother, a son or a daughter. I'd like to think that all are welcome in this place. I know that that may not always be possible. Some may not be able to be physically present in the church at this time, or some may not feel quite ready, or maybe some feel left out. But all God is asking us to do is to try our best to recognize the humanity in others, to reach out, to recognize our worthiness together, and to welcome each other. And we can strive to be like Jesus and welcome all to our table. So next week, we will celebrate communion, and I hope that you will come out to experience this sacrament that Jesus intended for us as a loving gathering to remember the one who loves us and saves us from despair, but also a warm embrace from the community, a time for fellowship, sharing with each other, and of course, enjoying some delicious food. Please know all are welcome. I know this is a lot, and many of you out there have done so much already to share and to care for the community. But I wanted to suggest a few more things, 5 things, but only choose one. And if you can do just one more thing, pick it and do it. The first, call a friend or neighbor you haven't talked to in a while, maybe someone who's been staying at home, and just say hi. 2, donate food for the food drive. Drop by your canned goods at the church on Sunday, or let us know. I'm around on Wednesdays and Thursdays in Innisfil, and I'm happy to take some in for you. Number 3, you can donate to the church, either Guildford or Churchill. And there will be emails attached here, hopefully, with places to send those through e-transfer, or come in person and you can have cash or credit in person, cash and check in person. And the other idea is that you could give to the Benevolent Fund or the Mission and Service Fund. These are special funds set aside for people that are in need locally and globally, whatever speaks to you. The 4th thing is welcome someone new to come with you to church on Sunday. Maybe give them a ride. Invite them to stay for fellowship and enjoy some food. And the 5th thing is ask for help if you need it. Please don't be shy. Reach out. We all struggle from time to time, and my number is in the email that you have or in your physical bulletin. Thank you. So by doing this one more thing, we can live up to the song that we sometimes sing together. All are welcome, all are welcome, all are welcome in this place. Amen. I'm just going to say a prayer for those who are at home, for God to bless you this week, to give you strength, to give you support, to bring in the resources that you need to be happy and healthy and safe at this time. And for those who are able, please bring forward your gifts, your talents, your resources. We would love to have you, and we need you in our community. May God bless and keep you. May the light of Christ shine upon you and through you throughout this week and always. Take good care, everyone. See you next week.